Hey everyone, my name is Alan Gongora. I'm managing partner of Langen Law Group. And today we'll be wrapping up our 5-part series on how to purchase property in Colombia. If you haven't seen our first set of videos, I highly encourage you to go back and watch those videos first. As always, let's get started with some things you should consider as you proceed with this particular set of tutorials. These tutorials are intended to help anyone interested in buying a single-family home or a condo in Colombia. Anyone buying property lots, pre-construction condos, and other types of property will find these tutorials to be very useful. However, feel free to check out our YouTube channel or our Facebook page because we may have already published additional tutorials that will focus on those other types of transactions separately. The difficulty level for these tutorials is basic. This means that you don't need any prior understanding of this process and you don't need any specialized knowledge of this topic. It should really be very user-friendly for anyone interested in buying property in Colombia. As always, keep in mind that these tutorials are only intended to provide general observations and suggestions. Remember that I'm actually a licensed New York corporate attorney, and while everything you will hear and see has been reviewed and approved by Colombian attorneys, these tutorials are not intended to provide actual legal advice. We highly recommend that you consult with your own local attorney to discuss your own specific legal requirements. And with that out of the way, let's get started. If you've watched our prior videos, you now have a pretty solid foundation on this topic. But there's nothing like a nice, practical summary to get a better sense of how everything fits together. And that's the purpose of this video. We want to put all the major issues and themes together in one place so you can have a much clearer idea about how foreigners can buy property in Colombia. Remember that the actual mechanics and chronology may vary quite a bit depending on the attorney that you use, the actual deal terms, and the specific strategy involved. I'm just going to describe the way our local law firm may handle a typical transaction. Again, we've been in this market for over 10 years and have developed a process that is intended to minimize risk to our clients. Bottom line, we consider the following to be the least risky, most ideal way to purchase property in Colombia. Now, you don't have to use our local law firm. There are plenty of great service providers in the local market. I would say that you do want to avoid certain types of service providers for this process. Some of these solo attorneys can be fantastic. However, some are less than reputable. More importantly, not sure you should trust the work of someone who may be looking out for the agent more than you. As mentioned earlier, there are benefits to using some of these big real estate management companies to locate target properties. However, we do recommend that you use an independent attorney to manage the legal aspects of any transaction to minimize any conflicts. This is a big one. Anyone who has traveled to Colombia knows how this works. Maybe it's your local girlfriend or spouse, maybe it's the taxi driver you use to drive around on a regular basis, or even just your building doorman. At some point, someone local will recommend their family members or friends as the lawyer you just have to use to help you buy property. As mentioned previously, using local real estate agents can be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, a good agent can be knowledgeable about the local market and can also identify great target properties for you to purchase. On the other hand, you need to expect, as we've mentioned previously, endemic double dealing, violation of confidentiality, etc., etc., etc. Bottom line, I think using an agent can be very helpful so long as you're aware of these issues all along the way and know how to use these agents. This process can take weeks and sometimes months. You don't want to be in a situation where you find an amazing target investment and you don't have a solid way to make payment. And here's our advice as to strategy. Use a local bank account, but only if you have one already set up and have been using it for a while. If you don't, then open a local brokerage account. When all else fails, you can always transfer funds directly to the seller in Colombia, so long as you keep those issues we discussed in an earlier video in mind. There is no MLS system in Colombia, which means you really need to do your homework. We normally recommend that you spend 1 to 3 months in Colombia pounding the pavement to find the ideal investment property. And feel free to reach out to your local real estate agent to make this happen. Make sure your local attorney is reputable and has a ton of experience. As mentioned in earlier videos, having a comprehensive title analysis will help you identify any defects in the title, plus will inform how to draft a purchase agreement to minimize risk for your purchase. Don't forget that local culture can mean some potential pushback from the seller at this point in the process. And remember that the more information and documentation you can get from the seller, the more solid that title analysis will be. Again, this is where your reputable local attorney can shine. You want to make sure the terms of the agreement anticipate any issues that were found in the title analysis, plus protects your interests in a wide variety of scenarios. Remember that you need to have funds available in Colombia to pay your earnest money deposit, okay, to pay closing costs, and to pay the purchase price. Make sure you follow the instructions of your local attorney. Your most important focus, other than getting clean title, is to make sure that you register your investment with the national bank correctly. Remember that you will likely need to pay the earnest money deposit on the day that the purchase agreement is signed. After you sign the purchase agreement, both you and the seller may need to do any number of things. For example, paying off existing mortgages, canceling existing liens, etc. Okay? The actual activities will vary depending on the property involved. Remember that there is no real escrow process in Colombia. This means that at this stage of the process, you may need to prepay a ton of expenses, weeks, maybe months, before you even get title to your property. At some point, you will need to sign the deed documentation at a local notary. By this point, your local attorney would have drafted and finalized a new deed that is approved by the local notary. This may take several hours. It is typical for sellers to hand over keys to buyer at this point. If you're purchasing your property in a city, you may need to wait just 3 to 4 weeks to have the title transfer into your name. If you're purchasing rural property, the transfer of title can take longer. And that's the end of the series of tutorials. We certainly hope that you found the information presented to be both useful and practical. For myself and the rest of our local team in Colombia, thank you for joining us. Take care, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit subscribe and hit the bell to get the latest content from our local law firm in Colombia.